decisive leadership now on climate action. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much to both our speakers for doing such a good job of staying to time, and thank you for our timekeeper as well for making sure that is the case. So we now have quite a lot of time for questions, so we don't need to have a panic. As I said, the approach is Serena is going to stand up with the microphone, and Bob Douglas has already got it. So if you would like to ask a question, please form a bit of a queue behind Bob. We've got plenty of time, and basically here are the rules. Tackling climate change is all about respect for other people. So let's show respect for other people by, in the first instance, asking short questions, and in the second instance, giving sincere, concise answers. So over to you, Bob. And oh, by the way, the speakers have both got a microphone in front of them, but if you'd like to stand up when you're answering the question, feel free, or whatever you're comfortable with. Over to you, Bob.
Thanks, Richard, and thanks to our two candidates. I'm sorry we only have two candidates present, but I think Canberrans generally feel that we're in a race to the bottom between the two major parties, that we do not have a choice about serious climate action on the stated evidence of the two parties. What I would like the two candidates to say is, where do they actually stand themselves, personally, in their caucus meetings or in their party meetings, on the question of a price, and would they agree with the recent emissions forum that looked at this, that this is such a crisis that it demands collective action across all three parties?
I think putting a price on carbon is incredibly urgent. I come out of the community sector, I come out of a social justice background. A big part of the reason I'm standing here before you now as a Greens candidate is I really care about climate action and climate action now. And I was tipped over into putting my hand up last year, seeing politician after politician, leader after leader walk away from action. We need some gutsy action, and we need it soon. We need it now. We need it this parliamentary term. We just can't afford to wait any longer. But we also need action that is actually going to move us to where we want to go. We need action where the targets are in line with the science, and we need action that requires the polluters to pay rather than us paying the polluters. So that's what I do say within the party, that's what I'll continue to say within the party, and I say it in a chorus with every other party member.
I think, yes, this is on. Our starting point with this is that, of course, climate change is real and is caused to a significant extent by human activity. And the Prime Minister, I'm answering this question from the Labor Party's point of view because I think I respect your wanting to access my personal views, but I think to pay respect to the purpose of this forum, you need to hear the party view. The Prime Minister has said she believes we need to put a cap on carbon pollution and we need a market-based mechanism to do that. And she is prepared, as she's said again and again, to lead the debate on developing that community consensus to do it. We need a low pollution and competitive economy, and that's why in our first term we've done everything we can, including install solar panels, subsidise renewable energy, hot water systems and so forth. And if re-elected, we've got a whole series of policies that will build on these investments in our first term, including investing in a clean energy future, tough new standards for power stations, connecting renewables to the grid and supporting newer investments in emerging renewable technologies, reducing pollution in our daily lives, things like tax breaks for green buildings, tough new emission standards for cars and a cleaner car rebate, and preparing, as I said, for a price on pollution. And a Gillard Labor government, as you know, will establish a climate change commission to inform the climate change debate. We need an independent source of information for expert advice to explain the science of climate change and report on progress of international action. From my perspective within the Labor Party, all of these things are consistently discussed, debated, pushed forward, pressure on. It's a live discussion and debate within the Labor Party. And what you're hearing from me are the commitments we've been able to provide and deliver on in our first term, and where we think we need to take the debate to take the next steps. But it's not the holding pattern some of the reporting of our position seems to be. It seems to be a favourite trick to say we've abandoned our commitment. That is not true. We acknowledge the political reality, and as sweet as it sounds to be able to say, just do it now, we tried. And for all of the criticism of our approach to that, we have been trying as a political party. And the political reality of this country is we've got the Greens to one side of us, not prepared to compromise on the model that we were negotiating at the time, and if their amendments were not able to fit within the scheme that we had put forward, and the Liberals who had walked away from addressing climate change at all. So, however idealistic and focused and pure your motivation is, I respect you for that, because the science is on your side. But there is a political reality embedded in where we need to take this debate, and it's going to be left.
There is also political leadership.
There is political leadership, and we're trying to find a way.
A bit, because
Trying to find a way forward. I'm just trying to give you, right at the start of this one, the essence of the challenge the Labor government faces, and if re-elected, please be assured we are committed to finding a way through this, but there is a political reality that we have to navigate, and that's been really tough, and we think the evidence shows how tough that's been.
no worries. Look,
I'll keep my answers shorter.
I'll ask our timekeeper to pay attention to the questions as well.
I was told the speakers were as long as they'd like.
I know, but I look at the long line, and I fear we might, even though we've given quite a lot of time.
How long do you wish to?
I think we'll have we'll ring the bell if questions take longer than a minute or answers take longer than 2. Well, there's lots of questions. I think, if people can ask concise questions, the speakers should be able to give specific, concise answers. So I don't think we're going to get to the bottom of climate change tonight, but we can get to the bottom of what people think about specific propositions. So next concise question, please.
Good evening, Anthony Dabb from the Australian Democrats. I have a question. When it comes to negotiating a emission trading scheme, will we come to the end of the next Parliament without one? In order to get one, on what grounds do you think that all the parties can come to an agreement with? In other words, what is negotiable and what's not negotiable?
Very, very difficult question, because it really depends on what stance the other parties take. If the coalition succumb, I think, to community pressure and concede that the science is in and they need to negotiate, then we're in a vastly different position from where we are now. Equally, if the Greens decide to compromise more on their position, on the scheme that we're using as a base for going forward, which is the CPRS scheme that we put forward last time, then we're in a different position. So I can't speculate on the hypothetical beyond that, other than I think in the first instance the political pressure brought to bear in the broader community to at least get the Liberals out of their sceptics and deniers corner would be of vast assistance to us, I think. And of course, I'll stop there. I can keep talking for another. So.
I suspect what will be different in this next term of government is a Green balance of power in the Senate. That will mean whoever forms government will have to negotiate with the Greens and actually negotiate with the Greens on an emissions trading scheme. So if we get balance of power, and I hope we do, we will be pushing to have a price put on carbon immediately, and then pushing to negotiate an emissions trading scheme. We're not intending to be unreasonable about it, but 5% is too low. We've been very clear about that. So you're on notice, Kate.
Thank you very much to the speakers. Well done. Next question.
Tom Gosling from Sustainable Population Australia. I noted with interest that, as per the custom these days, both speakers opened by acknowledging the Ngunnawal people of this area. Now, over 50,000 years, the original inhabitants of Australia, to my knowledge, they may have experimented with burning coal down around Port Kembla or Appin or somewhere, and they largely used renewable energy. And the whole sort of thing about the past 220 years of immigration hasn't been particularly beneficial for the Aboriginal people. And yet, while we acknowledge the people and proclaim our respect for them, do we ask them whether we should continue to have the world's highest immigration for any industrial nation into this country? Do we ever consult the Aboriginal people about whether further immigration, further record high immigration, is their wish? And how on earth can we expect to reduce greenhouse emissions while our population numbers continue to gallop ahead at a record rate for any industrial nation? Thanks.
Thanks, Tom. I mean, there's a raft of ways that we can reduce our greenhouse emissions, but I'll just stick to the population part of the question because I have very little time. We would say, in next parliamentary term, we want an inquiry and a national conversation about the population issue because it is very vexed. I don't know how many non-Aboriginal Australians go out to Indigenous Australia and ask that question. I suspect no government ever has. My experience of Indigenous Australian communities, urban, regional, rural and remote, is they're not consulted about very much at all. So I'd be surprised if population was way up the list of questions on a consultation tick list. But the issue is what size of population is sustainable in this country, is economically sustainable, is environmentally sustainable and is socially sustainable. And I think at this point we just don't know. Greens policy is to open that up for a debate, to have a review in the next term. So that's what we will be pushing for in the next term of government.
Look, on the issue of consultation, one of the principles that underpins the Citizens' Assembly proposal is to have a broader conversation. I know that suggestion has been met with various reactions in the community, but can I say I think it's a great way to expand the conversation. I think it's important, and clearly in the failings of our political institutions to resolve this, it's a logical next step to broaden it out. So perhaps the issue of engaging with our Indigenous population could form as a part of the conversation in the Citizens' Assembly. On the issue of sustainable population, our Prime Minister, Julia Gillard, has had a bit to say about this. She has a vision for Australia that is sustainable in population terms, and she's been articulating that through the course of this political election campaign. From my point of view, I think for places like Canberra, we are a growth centre. There are some areas in Australia that cannot sustain any more population. They are already stretched, and we need to work out a comprehensive way, I think as Lynn said, to determine what the test is for environmental sustainability for the population base in an identifiable area. For Canberra, I'm trying to be quick, for Canberra, I think we can be an exemplar community for a sustainable population, particularly in a growth environment and adapting our renewable energy and lightening our carbon footprint as we grow. I think that's critically important, and it's a significant opportunity for our region.
Yep. Everybody, questions from the queue, please. Next question.